Hello there, it's Jennifer McGuire. I'm glad you're here. Today I have a longer video for you where I simply have fun using some new products I was excited about and showing you some ways to stretch your supplies. Now I'll be using some really cool new stuff from Concord and Ninth and Kristina Werner, but I will be sharing other tips and techniques throughout the video on ways you can stretch supplies you already have. Now, I also wanted to mention that it's Concord and Ninth's 10th birthday. Excited about that. I've loved using the product since their first release. And to celebrate, they are doing two fun things. The first offer is exclusive to my friends, and that is to receive a free pack of cardstock. You can see the colors included there on the left. The information on how to get that free pack of cardstock is in the YouTube description below. Concord and Ninth is also offering a bounce back code for 10% off an order in September when you place an order today. So these offers are good on August 9th of 2025. All the information is below. All right, let's get started with my first card. This card offers a lot of dimension when you take it out of a regular envelope. Now, I will be showing you kind of how to take a product and give it a different look, a different style, and to change it up a bit. I'll also be sharing some stenciling techniques and more. Let's get started with the stenciling first, and it's the background that you see in the card there, but I'll show other examples too. This is the new Kristina Werner Thankful Leaves collection. There is a large stamp set. There are large coordinating stencils that line up with that stamp set, and there are coordinating dies. Now there are different ways you can use this. You can use the stencils by themselves, the stamp by themselves, or the dies by themselves, or you can mix and match them. Here's the stencil set. I love that her stencils are large, so this will work great on any size card. Now there's one stencil that colors in all the leaves if you want quick coloring. Then there are other stencils that layer together to color different leaves, different colors. Then there's a stencil that allows you to put the little lines in the leaves. Now you wouldn't use that if you're using the stamp set, so I like that there are different options, and I'm going to show you those today. By the way, Kristina Werner products are available through Concord and Ninth, so those offers I mentioned before include her products. When looking at these, I had 3 different ideas for backgrounds, and I wanted to share them all with you. I'll only be using one of them on my card today, but I'll save the other 2 for future cards. Just wanted to share it with you because they were really fun to make. All right, so I have my Misty stamping tool with a waffle flower grip mat inside. I'm placing a piece of white cardstock in there and then that large leaf image. I love that it's one image because I can stamp it all at once and then use all the stencils with it and it'll all line up great. I use my anti-static powder tool, and I'm stamping with Gina K embossing ink. Any clear embossing ink will work. This just happens to be my favorite right now. I'm adding on gold embossing powder here. You could instead stamp with a colored ink, with black, whatever you want, but I thought the gold would go really nicely with the inks I plan to use. Because I'm doing stenciling, I have a grip mat. This is the newest one from Waffle Flower that has more grip to it than previous versions. It's called a black grip mat, but the grip mat itself is not black. Just the paper or the clear paper that it comes on is black. So I'm leaving that on the back side so I can easily see what I'm doing on the front of the grip mat. So again, the grip mat is clear as always. Now I could use the stencil that allows you to color all the leaves the same, but instead I'm using the other stencils that allow you to give different colors. So I'm lining up the first one, and I'll be using Concord and Ninth inks today. I'm choosing to use a lighter color and a darker color together so we have a little bit of variation in our final leaves. I'm also using a pink fresh 1-inch blending brush. I find these are really easy to use. They always give smooth results and allow you to apply ink very quickly. You can also control to make it a lighter or darker amount of ink. Then I will switch to a darker color and just do that at the base of the leaves or at the bottom of the leaves. Notice that it's pretty high contrast between the tips and the bottom of the leaf, but these colors will blend and soften a bit and look gorgeous in the end. Now once I'm done with this, I'm going to wipe some of that excess ink off with a dry cloth, but I'm not going to clean it completely because I'll use the same color inks on my next background that I'm going to create. I love these bold colors with that gold embossed outline. Now let's move on to our next background. I'm going to do each step for each background and finish them all together. So this is just plain white cardstock. I'm using the same stencil. The only difference here is I'm not using the stamp outline. And you'll see that this gives you a bit of a different look, and I love having the options. Otherwise, everything about this is the same as the last one. I'm doing the same colors of ink. I gotta say, this is fun because it's very simple stenciling. I'm just using two different colors and getting those beautiful results. All right, now my third background is Concord wheat cardstock, which is a nice craft cardstock. And I'm first starting out with this stencil that has all the open leaves. And over this I'm putting Concord white pigment ink. When I apply white pigment ink, I like to use a foam inking tool. This is the Tim Holtz ink blending tool. And I'm really pressing that ink into the opening of the stencils, really working that ink into the nooks and crannies, and also making sure I get a heavy layer of that ink. Now this ink will stay wet for a while. That's okay. All I'll do is heat set it until I see the shine is gone from the ink, and then I know it's completely dry, and then we can move on to the next step. But basically I'm putting white ink down first on all of the leaves. Then I'm coming in with the same stencil that I started with on the other two backgrounds, which will just color 4 of the leaves. However, when I take this stencil, I'll line it up with the leaves and then shift it over to the right just a little bit. I mean, you could shift it in any direction, but you'll want to do the same shift with each stencil. So I shift it over to right a bit. So you can see there's a little bit of that wheat colored cardstock peeking out on the right side of those openings. And now I'll use the same inks on top of the stencil. What's happening is these inks are mostly landing on that white pigment ink that we've dried. However, some will halo around it and reach that craft cardstock, giving you a really cool halo look. You can see here that the white peeks out on the left side of those colored leaves, and then there is like a darker halo on the right side of those leaves. Now it's really important that you heat set this because that dye ink wants to stay wet on top of the pigment ink, so heat setting it is a good idea. All right, now let's go back to our first one that has the gold heat embossed outline. I will line up the next stencil with the next set of leaves, and at this point I realized I had cayenne ink all over my hands. I'm not sure how it happened, so I cleaned it up the best I could. This time I'm using Stardust for the first layer of ink over these leaves, and then I'm coming in with the avocado. Now, if you wanted to, you could do each of these leaves a different color so you have more variety. Or you could do maybe 2 of the leaves greens and 2 of the leaves in browns or so on. So you can have more variety in the color of leaves you end up with, but I'm trying to keep this pretty simple since I'm creating 3 backgrounds at once. All right, now I'm moving on to the next one, which is just the plain white cardstock. So I will use the same colors, ink it up in the same way, but this will not have the outline. I love creating these 3 backgrounds at once. It's a time saver and I love the different options. All right, now we're back to our wheat colored background. I lined up this stencil, but I shifted it again to the right a little bit. So we end up with that halo or ghost look, and I'm using the same inks. We do want to heat set this afterwards because again, this is dye ink on top of pigment ink, so it'll be a little wet and we don't want to smear that and ruin our background at this point. All right, now on to the third stencil. This colors the remaining leaves. At this point, I was considering doing 2 of them in greens and 2 of them in browns, but in the end, I decided doing them all in browns. So I did sprout ink first, and then I did parsley on top of that. I wanted to add a brighter green into the mix, but if you want to keep it more true kind of fall colors, you could do brown here instead. And then I did pop a little bit of evergreen at the base of those leaves for even more contrast. I think it'd be fun also to do a little bit of planning so you kind of have a rainbow leaves going from the top to the bottom, or maybe like a fall rainbow colors going from the top to the bottom, maybe yellows to orange to reds to browns. But I just went for a mix of colors. All right, now we are on the wheat one once again. We're going to shift that stencil over to the right just a little bit and do the same inking on this. Once we're done with adding the sprout, parsley, and evergreen, I will go ahead and heat set that. So now we have 3 different backgrounds, but I do want to make some changes to the 2 where I didn't do the outline stamp. I want to add those little lines into the leaf, and remember there is a stencil that does just that. Now I could use black ink or brown ink for this, but I decided instead to use gold pigment ink. The gold pigment ink that I use the most is Lisa Horton Metallic Pigment Ink. It comes in a set of 3. There's gold, copper, and silver. And I'm using the gold here. It is a nice bright gold and it goes on nicely over stencils. I am again using a foam applicator. This is an old handle I was given as a gift, but it's the foam from the Tim Holtz Mini Ink Blending Tool. And again, I find that best when I want to apply pigment inks over stencil. And look at how this gold ink just glows there at the center of these leaves. I love this option and the gold heat embossed outline, and it's nice to be able to do both. I will do this also on top of our wheat background, so we'll have the gold lines on these leaves also, and we end up with 3 different backgrounds. Oh, and by the way, since this is a pigment ink, I'll want to heat set this also. Now there are other things you could have done to change up the look of these backgrounds. You could have used maybe a glaze, like a gold glaze over that last stencil. You could add some spritz or splatter to this, lots of different things you could do, but I wanted 3 clean backgrounds, and I will use the wheat one on the card example for today. And just because I wanted to show you, I know folks are probably wondering, there are 4 leaf dies in the coordinating set, and these leaf dies are a little bit smaller than the leaves themselves. So when you line them up, you actually can cut them out without that white outline around the edge, which I love that option. I know many others do too. So there are these leaves. I don't end up using these. I just wanted to demonstrate here for you that you can get this look. I'm only using the craft background today. The one with the gold outline, I will show you what I plan to do with that in a bit. All right, now let's have some fun and create this accordion pop-up card. You can see that craft background that I just made on the inside, but first I want to show you how to create the outside of this. Whenever I get a new interactive die set or fun fold die set, I like to make one out of scrap cardstock to keep as kind of a template or guide for future cards, and also to get a little practice in first before making my actual card. So we'll start with that. So this is the Concord and Ninth accordion die set. This is allows you to create the base of a card that you can use with any products you want. There are many ways you can alter this and change it up, and I'll talk about some of those today. Now this oval here cuts a nice oval right in the center of your card base. We'll use it today on this card, but you can use it on regular cards too. That extra metal on the outside makes it easy to line it up and center it straight on your card. Now there is also the die that cuts the accordion side pieces. You can see the little score lines are ready for you, makes it easy to assemble. And by the way, the pieces that I've cut here are the ones you need to make a basic card base. So you have the solid rectangle, the rectangle with the oval cut, the 2 accordion side pieces, and then there is this piece that I call the bridge. This stretches over on the inside and allows you to do different layers of dimension. This all makes sense in a moment. But it cuts a long rectangle with 2 score lines on the outer edge. And you can cut 2 or 3 of those pieces. So that is the accordion card base die set from Concord and Ninth. So many ways you can use it, and I'm really excited. All right, so now the first step is to take the accordion sides of this, that die that cuts, it's kind of like a square with score lines, and you're just going to accordion fold along each of those score lines. I like to just fold it with my fingers, then take a bone folder and flatten it when it is folded up. And you can do the same thing with the other piece. Now, the cool thing about this is you can adjust this accordion. You can make it smaller, and that will allow you to have less pop-up dimension, which you'll see me do in a bit. But right now, I'm assembling this card base, this example one here, as it's intended to be assembled. This again is something I recommend you do anytime you get an interactive die set. Do a practice round like this out of scrap cardstock and keep it for future reference. Now on the outer flap, I'm putting strong liquid adhesive and putting that right along the edge of the solid rectangle. So the first fold line will line up with the left edge of that peach background. So I'll hold it up here so you can see. I'll show you a variation of this later on, but this is the basic way to do it. And then you'll do the same thing on the other side. As I glue that down, I wanted to mention I get really excited about die sets like this that are kind of bases for unique cards that you can incorporate other products you have, new and old, and different styles to change it up. And I'm going to work hard today to do kind of a different example, different style example than what Concord and Ninth has on their website, so you can see the versatility of it. If you're going to invest in a die set like this, you want to know many ways to use it. All right, so you can see those accordion folds and how much this will pop up on your card. You can cut some of those accordion folds off so you have less pop-up, which I'll show later. Now if you wanted to, you could take the front and glue that right onto those blue flaps that are sticking up, and there you have like a pop-up frame with tons of depth to it. However, if you want to have different layers of depth, we have those orange pieces on the side that I call the bridge pieces. That allows you to really create a scene with many different levels to it. Now I'm taking this and I'm folding along the score lines. These score lines are about 1/4 of an inch from the two ends, and these will allow you to create those layers of dimension. All right, so now what I'll do is I'll pick an accordion fold that I want to glue this to. You can put it in between any of those accordion folds. You just want to pick one and make sure you glue the two ends to the same accordion fold on each side. So I'm going to flatten it so it's on like the first accordion fold, and I'll just use a magnet or something heavy to hold it there. Then I will do the same thing on the other side. I'll flatten it to that first accordion fold, put a magnet on it or something heavy to flatten it. Then I will glue onto those accordion folds the little flaps at the end of this bridge piece. So I'll put liquid adhesive on the edge of that bridge piece, and I'll glue it onto the blue accordion fold. This one I'm going to put along the bottom. Now I first could have cut this with a border die so it has a decorative edge. I'm just putting a basic one together for you to see here. So now you can see how those little flaps on the bridge piece are glued to the blue accordion folds in between a few of the folds, so you have like your first layer of pop-up. So you can see how it's glued in there. It's important to glue the flaps onto the blue accordion fold, not just the ends of the bridge. Make sure you do just the flaps. That way it'll pop up nicely. So easy to do. Now let's repeat that with another one of the bridge pieces so you can see even more layers of dimension. But remember, you can skip the different layers, which you'll see me do later. I could just put the frame on the front and you can see this fun pop-up with the one layer popping up, but I want to show you all the layers with this example. So now I'm flattening to the next accordion fold, so I'm just putting my magnets on there to hold it in place. Now I have another one of the bridge pieces. This time I'm going to pretend I used a border die on it. Instead, I'm just going to hand cut a little curve here just to show you don't have to keep this full width. I will fold again along those two score lines on the end, put liquid adhesive on those flaps, and then lay that down stretched across. So one flap goes on the blue accordion fold on the left and one goes on the right. Once you put it down, you want to press that flat to make sure that it doesn't kind of buckle up when the card is done. Hold it there for a bit, and then you have your next layer. So you can see how you can change the height, I guess you would say, of each of these bridge pieces so you can really create a fun scene. So this one would be fun being water in the background and then land there in the front. And this bridge is stretched across between the next set of accordion folds. Now we have one more that we can add in there. You could get creative and add more if you wanted to, but I'm just going with the basic design here. Now I had mentioned that I do this as like a practice when I get a new interactive die set, and I do keep this so I can refer back to it. But I tell you, doing a practice round like this really is a great way to get your creativity flowing with the product and figuring out how you can change it up to work with products that you have. So, all right, we're on this last bridge. I cut it kind of wavy again, put liquid adhesive on those flaps. This time I'm putting it across the top. You can put it anywhere, top, bottom, middle, it doesn't matter. But I thought this one could be clouds if I were to use a cloud border on it. I glued that between the last accordion folds, and there you can see the 3 layers of dimension that pop up. And I love how easy this is to do. The final step is to glue the frame to the front. And that means it's just liquid adhesive on the final blue flap of the accordion folds that are on the side. You put the left edge of your frame onto it, and then you can put liquid adhesive on the other blue flap and put the right edge of that frame. By the way, if you wanted to, you could change this window. Instead of using the oval die that comes with the die set, you could do a circle, you could do a rectangle, you could do a heart. I think a heart would be beautiful on there. So many ways you can change this up if you want to. All right, so there we have our fun accordion pop-up card base. So you can change this up in many different ways. I just use scrap paper, and now I have a template ready to go for future reference when I need to remember how to use this. And I got some practice. By the way, this makes a pop-up base that is 4 by 5 1/4, so you can easily add a mat to it or a card base that's slightly bigger behind it, and it flattens very nicely to go into an envelope. Now before we make my actual card using this in the leaf background that I created earlier, I did want to show you some of the coordinating products that Concord and Ninth came out with to go with the Accordion card base. This is the Accordion birthday set. It's their 10th birthday, so I like that they included this. Now you can see a lot of these elements could be used on a regular flat card, but a lot of the elements were designed to work with the Accordion card base. Now, remember, you can use products you have on hand. You can use your own border dies, your own dies, stamps, and so on. But it's nice that these are available in case you want something that's easy to use with the accordion fold. So for example, this is a birthday board or birthday balloon border that you could put at the top. There are individual birthday balloons you can add to it. There's a cake pop-up, lots of different things, some presents and more. And there is the little stamp set that's sold together or separately. There are also little curved banner dies for sentiments that curve nicely along that oval shape. Now I asked Concord and Ninth if I could show some of their examples that they've created with this, and here you can see the fun birthday card that you can make between the two bundles together. Oh, and in the background you can see two flat cards they made using the same product set, so you don't have to do dimensional. Another new product that they have is the Accordion Woodland set. This is nice because it has like a leaf border, some clouds, some bushes, little trees that you can have sticking out, little branches. Many different ways you could use this with other products you already have. I really like that little corner element too, so you have like a corner of something popping up. But I will be using this leaf border in today's example, so you'll be seeing that in action. And here are some examples from Concord and Ninth. You can see the Woodland Bundle used on the bottom two cards there. You can see the trees and the branches and all the different ways you can use it. All right, now that I've gone through that, it's time to make our example. Let's create all the pieces of that accordion card base. First, I'm using the rectangle die from the die set to cut from our leaf background. And then I used two pieces of wheat cardstock to cut the rectangle and the oval together. You can see the two frames here. I'm gluing those together. This is a little bit of a lighter weight cardstock, and I want the front of my card to be nice and strong. So by gluing two together, it'll be stronger, a little more sturdy. You could also use just a heavyweight piece of cardstock, but doubling up is easy to do. Next, let's create those accordion fold sides. I cut two of these sides, for each side of the card obviously, from the wheat color cardstock. So here's the first one. I folded it, I'm pressing that down. I decided for this particular card I wanted less dimension, so I'm cutting off one of the folds. So I'll cut off one V. So basically I'm cutting at a second score line from the edge. So this will just give us less pop-up dimension. You could cut off more if you wanted to, or leave it at full accordion, totally up to you. So now you can see my accordion fold piece is smaller. And now on the other one, instead of folding first and then cutting, I'll just go ahead and cut at one of the second score lines from the end and accordion fold what's left over. So now my two sides to this accordion card base are the exact same, and it'll give me a little bit less pop-up dimension. I just wanted to be able to demonstrate that you can change this. You could even make it even less pop-up dimension. It's nice to have those options. Okay, so now we can go ahead and add these to our background. Now I'm going to do it a little bit different. I don't want to cover up any of those leaves. So instead of gluing those accordion folds onto the front of our background, I'm going to tuck them behind the background. So I cut just a little hair off the left and the right of our leaf background, so it's not as wide. I put liquid adhesive on the first flap and I'm gluing it to the back of our leaf background. So on my example earlier, I glued the accordion sides onto the front of the background. This time I'm tucking them behind it. It's completely up to you how you do it. So now I'll put liquid adhesive on this flap here. It's the inside of the flap, and I'll tuck that to the back side of the background. It just makes the entire background in there show. It doesn't really all show in the end when you add everything, so it really doesn't matter. But I wanted to show you could do it this way. Every once in a while I like to stop and put the frame on the front just to see how I'm going. By the way, I will cover up the background of that a little later. For sentiment, I'm using the Kristina Werner Thick and Thin Thanks. I really like this because the top Thanks is really thin with a shadow die. The bottom Thanks is thicker with a shadow die. And you can mix and match these together in many ways, which you'll see a little bit later in this. But I cut it from white cardstock. Actually, I cut it twice from white cardstock and glued it together. And that way I can kind of plan out. I want this thanks kind of floating there in the middle, so I went ahead and cut it so it's ready to go as I plan the rest of the card. Now I have the bridge die piece, and I've cut it from vellum. Instead of having cardstock kind of float in the middle there, I wanted a vellum bridge. Now I wanted to cut that vellum bridge with this border die that is from the Woodland Accordion die set. I wanted to cut it along the top and the bottom, but I noticed the bridge piece isn't tall enough, so I'm creating my own bridge piece. I cut another piece of vellum the same length as the bridge piece that the die cuts, but I made it taller. So you can see it's about 3 inches tall there. And I will do a score line at 1/4 of an inch from each end. So basically I'm creating my own bridge piece exactly like the die makes, but it's taller. That way I can cut that leaf border along the top and the bottom of the bridge piece. Now this may not make sense yet, just stick with me and you'll see why I'm doing this. So I cut a border along the top. Now I'll flip that over, rotate it, and cut it along the bottom, leaving about 1/4 of an inch or a little more between the two borders. So now I've got this nice vellum element that will float across the center of our card, and I can fold the little 1/4 inch flaps back still. Now I wanted to have a piece of cardstock go along that. So I'm using the new Kristina Werner Easy Strips die. This die cuts 7.5 inch, I think, long strips and lots of different widths. There's multiple of some of them. This is fantastic and a great way to use your scraps, and it cuts perfect strips. So I cut that from some wheat cardstock, and I'm taking one of the thinnest strips and I will glue that right along that vellum border that we created. This will give it just a little bit of decorative look, but also it gives a little more strength to that vellum because the vellum is very thin, lightweight, going across as a bridge. So this little bit of cardstock will actually give it a little more strength. So I'm gluing that right down the center of the vellum, and then I will cut it at those fold lines of the flaps that are at the end of the vellum. So I cut it short on this side and I cut it short on the other. So now we have a modified bridge that will go right across the center of our accordion card base. Now I want this to float closer to the front than the back, so I decided to put it into this accordion fold. So I'll flatten that down so that this will kind of pop up even more. I could put it farther back between one of the back accordion folds, but this I thought would give great results. So I put some strong adhesive on the flap at the end here, and then some strong adhesive on the other end flap, and I'll press that down, stretched across those two accordion folds. Now you want to make sure that this is strong adhesive because it's a tiny little flap that's holding it there, and liquid adhesive or double-sided tape would be a good option. If you use liquid adhesive with vellum, just give it a little extra time to dry. Okay, so here's what we have so far, and I'm going to put the front on it, just hold it there just to see if I'm headed in the right direction. I do realize I cover a lot of that leaf background on the inside, but I just felt that it would really result in a great card in the end. I also wanted to do something interesting to the frame on the front, so I'm using the Wood Lines stamp from Kristina Werner. This is a clear background stamp, and I'm stamping that onto our doubled up frame, the Concord 9th wheat frame that I glued 2 of together earlier, and I'm stamping this with white pigment ink. You could do like a tone on tone with a brown ink, but I feel like this white kind of softens it up and it matches nicely with that little bit of white halo that we have around some of our leaves on the inside. So I'll put liquid adhesive on the 2 flaps that are facing up and place the frame onto it. Now I could have done more bridges on the inside, as I demonstrated earlier with my practice round of this, but I just wanted that one vellum floating across the inside where I can add my sentiment. And if I added another bridge in there, I was afraid I would be covering up too much of that leaf background on the inside. By the way, you really could simplify this in so many ways. You don't have to make it as elaborate. And you can change the style. For example, on the Concord 9th website, most of their examples have more of a cutesy scene. I wanted to show you more of an elegant option and demonstrate that you can use a lot of different products with this accordion card base. We want to get the most out of the supplies that we invest in. At first, I thought I would do the thanks from the thin gold thanks die and put it onto the thick thanks die of white cardstock, which you could see here. It just does a tiny little trim, and I love that option, but I felt like that got lost a bit in all that wheat cardstock. So I did cut a shadow from white and I'll glue that on top. And I felt that made the thanks pop even more. Then I will put a line of liquid adhesive just straight along the back of this die cut and add it right onto that vellum leaf bridge. I could use a smaller sentiment here, which again would hide less of what we have showing through the inside, but I really wanted to use this thanks die cut because I love the style of it. In fact, I use it on the next card too. I didn't want to add too much else to this, but I thought some more vellum leaves would be nice. I cut a few vellum leaves and glued to the inside background, just into those corners where there was no inking. It really doesn't matter because you don't see it unless you tilt the card, but I decided to put them there because I had cut them. You can also see I cut a bunch of other leaves using the Werner Thankful Leaves die set. I cut it from gold cardstock and from champagne cardstock, white and vellum. And I wasn't sure what I wanted to put on this. I considered doing the metallic on the front, but in the end I opted to go with all vellum leaves so that the background inside would stand out even more. So since I'm adding some vellum leaves to the front, I needed to hide my adhesive. I don't really like vellum adhesive, so what I do is I put just a dot of liquid glue behind the vellum leaves, and then on the front of the vellum leaf in the same spot, I'll put another dot of liquid adhesive and add some gemstones. So these are just some gold gemstones, and I'll scatter 2 leaves in the bottom corner with some gems, and then 1 leaf up in the top right with some gems. So after I finish that, we have our completed card, and you can see it will flatten to go into an envelope. And notice on this one, it has less pop-up dimension than the practice one we did because I cut some of those accordion folds out. Now I did on this one add the whole pop-up feature to a 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch white note card so that there's a place to write a personal message on the inside, and this whole pop-up feature just pops up on the front. You could skip the note card. It'll stand up without the note card there and just write your personal message on the back if you prefer. It's nice to have different options. But I'm loving that you can peek through all of that vellum dimension that we have and see those gold and colorful leaves behind it. Just a fun way to use different products together creatively. And it flattens really nicely to go into an envelope. At this point, I thought it would also be good to make some of those gold gemstones float in the center around the word thanks. So I did add these. I put some little drops of liquid adhesive on the vellum leaves, and I added those floating gemstones also. Now there are so many ways you could alter this whole pop-up feature. You can make it vertical, you could do different shaped windows, lots of different ideas. I probably will do a live in the upcoming months showing more things to do with this because I don't know, I just feel like it's one of those die sets you can get a lot of use out of. So stay tuned for that. Before I move on to my next card, I did want to show you what I plan to do with that third background. This is the one with the gold heat embossed outline stamping. For this one, I thought it'd be fun to stamp over it with that Wood Lines background stamp from Kristina Werner, stamping it with wheat ink. This is just a fun way to kind of step up a stenciled or stamped background. Now again, I'm not completing this, but what I do plan to do is cut a rectangle background out of this. Then remember that oval die that is part of the accordion card base. I'm going to cut a frame from that to put on top. So this won't be a pop-up card, but just to show you that you can use this oval frame for other cards also. So just wanted to show you another way to use that stenciled background. And one more thing before that next card, there are some older products from Concord and Ninth I think would work really well with that accordion card base. This is from the last release. It creates a fun secret garden. Now these elements were designed to go with a different kind of dimensional card base that they came out with last month, but I think it would work with today's also. Now the other card base is definitely worth checking out too. I plan to use this in a live. This is the other card base. This is the Concord and Ninth Pop Out Stacks card base. It kind of folds into a corner, kind of folds in half, and you have bridges that open up across it. I'll show you examples in a moment. For that set, there was also the Boardwalk Stacks die set, which does like a little carnival scene. These two sets on the left would work either with the card base on the right or with the accordion card base I used today. Just wanting to show you in case you got some of this last month and wanted to find ways to stretch those. So this is the Pop Out Stacks card base. This is what it creates, and it's a really nice one that fits into a regular envelope with different tiers that you can decorate it It's just another type of pop-up card. Here's with the Secret Garden die cuts added to it. Again, those Secret Garden dies would work great with today's accordion card base too. And then here is that little carnival scene. Just wanting to show you some of the different options available and how you can mix and match all of these products. And all of this is linked in my YouTube description below. These cards are by Concord and Ninth, so you can go to their website to see more examples. All right, now for my second card, this fun curio cabinet. It stands up nicely on display and has little windows, or I'm sorry, doors that open on the front. This was really fun to do and a great way to create a shaped card that you can do with other dies also. So this is the new Concord and Ninth Curio die set, and there's also a stamp set. You can buy them as a bundle or separately. So the Curio die set makes that curio cabinet and has lots of different options of things that you can put on the inside to decorate it. You have little plates, mugs, vases, and so much more, even some birthday themed things. Now the way that I like to use this curio cabinet die set is to cut 3 from cardstock. Actually, we're going to cut 4 from cardstock. I use Concord and Ninth Aqua Sky. It's one of my favorite colors of cardstock. So I have 4 die cuts, and from 3 of them, I'm cutting the doors off. I'm doing this so that I can make a strong card that will stand up on display, but do know there are many different ways you could use this particular die set. I'm doing just a fun kind of everyday curio cabinet look. However, you could add little holiday things in here, you could do birthday, you could do all kinds of things, incorporating other die sets you may have also. Now on that 4th die cut where the doors are still connected, I'm folding the little doors back. So there's little score lines there, I'm just reinforcing those with a bone folder. And you'll see that these 2 doors will meet in the center, creating your fun curio cabinet. Now, because this is going to be a shaped card that will stand on those little legs, I want this front to be stronger. So I'll take one of my other die cuts where I cut the doors off, and I'll glue this onto the back side. So this is just making this curio cabinet die cut stronger by doubling it up. If you use a really heavy cardstock, you might not need to do this, but again, those little legs are pretty delicate, so doubling up is a safe thing to do. Now the other 2 die cuts without the door, we're going to create the back of the card from. So I'll take one of these and do a score line towards the top of it. I'm doing it about 3/4 to 1 inch from the top. It really doesn't matter. You just want to create a hinge up there towards the top of this die cut. Then the other die cut, we're going to cut part of the top off. Now I want to cut it off near where we scored the last one, so I'm just going to score a line here so I know where to cut. That way I don't have to measure, but you don't have to score there. One piece will be scored, the other one you'll cut short at about the same spot where you scored the first one. This shorter one will get glued onto the back of the hinged one. So it's going to get glued back there again so those legs are stronger. When we glue these 2 together, it'll form the back of our card, which you'll see in a moment. So I'll glue the shortened one on to the back of the hinged one. So over on the left we have the front of our card, and in my hand here we have the back of the card. So to put the 2 halves of the card together, I'll put strong adhesive above the score line, above that hinge, and place the front of the card on it. This is the best way to make a shaped card. You could do a large circle, large oval, anything you want, but in this case we're making a stand-up curio cabinet. So now this will open up and you have a place to write your personal message there on the inside, and it'll stand on all 4 of those legs. Next I wanted to add some vellum window panes to those doors. So the die set includes individual door dies, and I cut 2 there from Aqua Sky cardstock. I'm putting adhesive on the back of that door die cut and putting a piece of vellum onto it. So I just cut that vellum to be slightly smaller than the size of the door. Now I will put adhesive on the back of this and glue it onto one of the doors on the actual die cut, or on our actual curio cabinet. So the vellum ends up being sandwiched between the door on the curio cabinet and the additional door die cut. And of course I'll do the same thing to the other door. You could instead just put solid cardstock inside of there or a piece of acetate to make it completely see-through. Keep in mind, in the die set, there are lots of little decorative die cuts that you can add to the curio cabinet, lots of different options, but I decided to keep mine pretty plain and simple. In fact, there is a die that cuts 3 thin cardstock strips that are meant to be shelves inside of the curio cabinet, but I cut 2 of them to glue on the front just as a little bit of a decorative edge along the top of the curio cabinet, above the doors, and also below the doors. I had a little bit of glue kind of sticking out the side of those thin little die cuts, so I use an adhesive eraser to rub that away. It works great and is one of my most used tools. So these little details take a little bit of time to add to this curio cabinet, but I definitely feel like it steps it up. Now it's up to you how much detail you add to this. You could keep this very simple if you wanted to, but I appreciate that Concord and Ninth includes a lot of detailed dies if you want to use them. For example, there are hinge and doorknob die cuts that I decided to use, but you could skip. I cut mine from silver metallic cardstock, and liquid adhesive and a little wax pickup tool like the one I'm using here makes it easy to add those tiny die cuts. As far as a sentiment, you can really add a sentiment anywhere you want to in here. I'm going to put the thanks on the front bottom of my card because I really like this thin and thick thanks die set from Kristina. I just die cut the word thanks alone without the shadow die. From white cardstock, I cut it twice, glued those together, and then added it towards the bottom of that curio cabinet. Now I decorated the inside of the cabinet off screen just to save some time. All I did was use die cuts from the Curio Cabinet die set. They're all included there, lots of different options. I chose to create some plates and bowls and mugs, a vase with some little foliage in it, and then I decided to use a different stamp set. This is the older Concord and Ninth paper Posy stamp set, and I chose a sentiment from that to stamp with black ink on the inside. So you can decorate that inside however you want. Again, I just stuck with dies included in the set. Easy to follow along. In fact, if you go over to the Concord and Ninth website, they have lots of examples and also a guide that shows how all the dies are used together. Now here is the completed card. It does fit into a regular A2 envelope. You can write your personal message on the inside and it stands really nicely on display. You can change this up for birthday, for holiday, for fall, really anything you want. And I'm hoping to do more examples with this in a future live because I think it's a great one to change up in many ways. And that's what this is all about, is making the most of our supplies, stretching how we use them, and building our creativity. Before we go, I wanted to show you some other new things from this release that I really liked but didn't have a chance to use. So this is the Concord and Ninth Sentimental Florals. There's a stamp set and a die set. I really like these square sentiments because I think they'd be easy to cut out and add to any card, but they work really well with the particular die set. So you can use the stamps to create an image like this, or you could use the stamps as a guide to use the die cuts to create a layered card. So you could either use a flat stamped card or use the die cuts for some layering. And here is an example that Concord and Ninth mentioned that I can share. I just thought it was a really unique design and I look forward to using it in the future. You can see the card in the front is done with stamping and the card in back is done with die cutting. Now what I was really excited about, and I can't wait to use, are the new Concord and Ninth Fall Favors die set. These create little fall favor boxes. You can see there is an acorn version, a pumpkin, or an apple. And I think that apple would be really fun for teacher gifts. There is also a way to change it up, so you can make a little succulent plant or a little plant out of it. So many ways you can use this particular die set. All of these examples are on Concord and Ninth's website, and it's really easy to assemble, and I hope to use it in the near future. I just wanted to show you these in the video because I think they're really creative and different. And there are those 2 special offers that I mentioned at the beginning of this video, so these are worth considering also. Now keep in mind, the cards I made today, you can change up using products that you may have already on hand or make different shape or different type of pop-up cards. If you're interested in the particular products I used today, I have them linked below in my YouTube description along with those 2 special offers. And here at the end, I'll link to 2 related videos if you're looking for more inspiration. Thanks for spending this time with me, and we'll see you again soon.